From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
And welcome into Open Line. I'm Chuck Long. Glad that you could join us this evening. Always like it when you tune into Open Line. Well, tonight it's Ask the Expert, and we're going to be talking legal matters with expert, great lawyer here in town, Clint Kelly from the Kelly firm. We're going to be talking about medical malpractice, and that's a situation that I know you don't want to have to encounter, but when you do, you need answers, and you need to know where to go, what to ask, what to do. What's the limitation? So many questions, and we're going to get to a lot of your comments, a lot of your questions, as we always do here on Open Line. I'd like to say welcome to Clint Kelly. Always great to have you here, Clint.
Thank you, Chuck. Good to see you, too.
Great to see you. Now, just kind of diving right in, I know probably the majority of people, you don't encounter these situations where you go to the hospital or at your doctor's office or wherever the case may be. Everything's normally fine. But in those cases where something does go wrong, maybe you're being transported to the emergency room, maybe something happens in the emergency room, in the hospital, at the doctor's office, and something goes wrong. Often I think people who encounter this see something like it's like almost David versus Goliath when they have to find out what they need to do. So kind of start us off, medical malpractice, kind of explain what your firm does in regards to that, because I know you guys are the experts in that area.
Right. Well, typically in the situation you describe, you'll have a patient or a family member who sees that there's been a major medical mistake. I mean, they know it.
Right.
And then the question after that is, has there been a major medical injury, a death, loss of a limb, loss of eyesight? When those two things come together, it's a storm, and people need to get help, and they want to ask a question: what should I do? How do I get this evaluated? Do I need representation? And that's when I come into play, is have someone contact me at my office and say, this is what happened to me, what are my rights? Has there been bad medical care here, and what can you do about it, Mr. Kelly? In that situation, if the case is one that I believe deserves to be investigated, I'll hire an expert, and I have many experts that are affiliated with my firm, and one of those experts, or two, depending on the nature of the case, will look at the facts and make a determination whether or not there has been malpractice.
Right. Now, as you're watching this evening, it could have been something that happened to you, could have been something that happened to a loved one. As always, we are here for you. We are your forum, 737-7587. When you have a question or a comment, maybe you've been wondering, is there something that you could do, but you didn't know what step to take? This is what we want to help you do. We want to be education for you. We want to be able to answer the questions for you. So when you do have one of those questions or comments, be sure and give us a call. We're talking with Clint Kelly from the Kelly firm. Now, another thing that's really important is the fact that there are not very many firms that actually specialize in medical malpractice. So talk to me about that.
That's correct. I'm a certified medical malpractice specialist, and there are very, very few of us, probably a couple of handfuls of people who actually are certified. And in the Middle Tennessee area, I'm going to say maybe 15 to 20 who do this on a regular basis. And it's vital to have someone who does hire someone who does do this on a regular basis, because the two things going on: first of all, the laws are very specific about what you have to prove to win one of these cases, and then secondly, you have to have access to good medical experts who can review the case and are willing to come to court and testify on behalf of the client.
Well, and if you're wondering if maybe there is something that's affected you, or like we said, maybe a family member, you can always give us a call. We'll get to those calls as we go through the evening to tonight. Shannon is on the line with us right now. Shannon, thanks for calling in. Do you have a question or a comment for Clint Kelly?
I'm searching for her.
Okay.
She can't remember what to say.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I got an uncle that got injured on a city job, and they gave him major lifetime on it, and the bone in his left arm, I think he said, is deteriorating, and the muscles in his hand is deteriorating, and he also had an injury down there around his neck, and they operated on him for that, and that bothers him all the time, and they won't do nothing but just furnish medicine.
How long ago did this happen?
How long ago this happened? 97.
Chuck, this is a good opportunity to talk about the statute of limitations. In Tennessee, we have a 1-year statute of limitations. What that means is you have to give notice of intent to sue to a doctor or hospital within 1 year from the date that you discover the injury. It's a very strict rule. Probably had about 1 out of 4 cases I've had to turn down because the patient, prospective client, waited too late to contact me or to contact another attorney. And so there are a couple of exceptions. One of them is if there's a foreign object left in the body. That way you can bring a case if it's 10, 15 years later. Another situation is exception would be fraudulent concealment, where the doctor has actively withheld information from the patient so they could not discover their case. But 99% of the time, the patient must bring suit, must bring notice to the doctor within 1 year from discovering the injury, and then bring a suit after that. And from what he's describing, something that happened in 1997, this doesn't sound like one of those situations where you could bring a case because the time's gone by.
Right. So I know that is a tough situation. That's just one of the questions, though, that it's good for you to ask so that you're aware of that. There is that 1 year statute of limitation. Another thing that I think people wonder is when something happens, what do they do first? Do they call you, and is that one of the best things that they can do? Do they start saving their medical records? What?
Yeah, absolutely. First, it starts with a phone call, and the phone call is free, and the consultation is free, and the patient or client doesn't pay anything unless I recover money for that client. That's so important to remember, because some people, they don't want to pick up the phone because they're like, gee, if I pick up the phone and I call this lawyer, I might have to pay money to him to get an opinion. I might have to pay money to him to pursue the case. That is not the case with me or our firm. We always give free consultations, and we always represent the client without there being any money being paid unless we recover money, unless we are successful. And it never hurts to pick up the phone and ask a question, because if we don't take the case, and most of them we don't, Chuck, the client's not lost anything, and at least they've got some peace of mind that, look, I called, I wanted to check and see if I had a case, turns out I didn't, I did the right thing. There are also clients who call and say, I think maybe I have a case, and I look at it and say, yes, you do, and I'm willing to take it. And it's the best phone call they ever made. Let me give an example, Chuck, of a situation where this happens more often than not. Is I'll get a client who will call me and say, my husband got injured, went to a hospital, had a surgical misadventure, and as a result of that, he's lost his leg. And, I talked to him about bringing a lawsuit, and my husband says, I can get on disability. I think I can make it. Let's give it some time. Let me see how I can adjust to this. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait. And then after a year goes by, the husband says, I'm not going to be able to earn any money. We may not be able to keep our house. We can't pay our medical expenses. I don't know how we're going to raise our kids. Call a lawyer. And then the wife calls me, and I look at the facts of the case, and I say, I'm sorry you waited too late. And it's a crusher, because I look at the case and say, you actually had a lawsuit. There was malpractice here, but I can't bring the case because you waited too late. And that's why I always want to say at the top of this show, always call when you suspect something has gone wrong in a hospital or with a doctor, because the worst that can happen is for me to say you don't have a case because there wasn't malpractice. But at least if you do have a case, I can take it and go forward with it.
Right. And there's a number of areas where someone could call you and definitely have a case. I mean, whether we're talking a surgical mistake, birth trauma, anesthetic error, prescription mix-up. I mean, that's another thing that people sometimes don't even realize. I mean, that's a major thing. If there is a prescription mix-up, they may have a case. That
happens a lot, Chuck. In fact, it happens quite a bit. And you would think in this era where we have electronic medical records and people that are supposed to be checking, they wear like wrist straps, they scan them to make sure they've got the right patient, right medicine. That happens, though, even more than you want to think. And I'll tell you what is happening increasingly, I've noticed in the last few years, particularly the last couple of years, doctors operating on the wrong patient or operating on the wrong part of the patient. And they're supposed to take a time out, back off, make sure that they're working in the right place and doing the right thing. But because the volume is going up and the amount of time that a doctor can devote is going down, the margin for error is that slim. And they're trying to get through their day as quickly as they can, and in some instances there's a slip up, and a patient will wake up and they're supposed to have elbow surgery on the right arm. They wake up and they've got a sling on the left arm. What just happened to me?
Right.
That is happening more and more often, and I just think it's a matter of it's numbers. It's sheer volume. We only have so many hospitals in this city, only so many doctors, with so many patients coming in. And until they build new hospitals, until they get a better system for safety, these things are going to continue to happen, and patients are going to pay the price.
Right, sadly to say. So we do have callers on the line with us, but we do need to take a short break. Stay on the line with us. We'll get to as many calls as we can right after this break. So come on back. You're watching Open Line.